This week on the Men at the Movies podcast, I talked with actor and filmmaker Will Branner. We discuss how we can take the stories we live in and make them meaningful. We also talk about how our main tool to lift people up is storytelling. He encourages us to take those risks, support your vision, be your own biggest fan, and go for it. Welcome to Men at the Movies.
The movies and stories we love are gateways to see ourselves and God in new ways.
Every great story borrows its power from a larger story. The story that's written on our hearts and woven into the fabric of our very being. Hello and welcome to the Men at the Movies podcast. My name is Paul McDonald, and joining me live in the studio in my basement, it's kind of like coming down to the dungeon tonight. I got Will Branner. How you doing, man?
How's it going? Happy to be here.
Well, I'm really excited. This is a different podcast format that we've normally had. We've got no movie to talk about, at least not one that we've watched in the last 24 hours or so.
We have movies to talk about.
Exactly. So I'm going to go back, give you a little bit of background information, because I met Will. We met each other. We were heading down last Halloween.
A chance meeting.
Yeah.
Fated meeting.
Exactly.
The universe conspired to bring us together. It was a beautiful thing.
Last year it was my wife and I, our 10th anniversary. It was my wife's 50th birthday.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
You made it.
Yeah. She doesn't care if I tell people how old she is. Mostly because they look at her and it's like, what? You're that old?
Right.
When I tell people how old they are, they're like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Well, that's like my go-to response with age. I'm like, no way, you're 20. Like, I just overcorrect all the way.
How old do I look? Like 65.
Oh, 28 to me. That's just me.
So we were flying. We went to St. Thomas because she likes the beach. She likes it hot. If it was me, we'd be going to Scotland or I don't know. Scotland's pretty much where we would go, I think.
Right, you're a cool guy.
Yeah, exactly. Or I'm a little overweight and I like it cooler. So.
Yeah. All the extra insulation.
Exactly.
Doesn't mix well with the tropics, right?
No, and that happened on the trip. So we went and we got a catamaran with my brother and his wife, and so they all like it. Like my brother, he puts a sweater on if it gets less than 80. Which my wife is right there with him. So we had air conditioning on the boat, but it was set at 80. So at night I've got 3 fans blowing on me. I'm still sweating. Didn't get a lot of sleep that week for no good reasons other than just sweating and just miserable.
Well, you're a good husband, so that's
yeah,
good. The sacrifices we make, right?
Yeah, I sent her my wish list for my 50th birthday. And it was these glass igloos in Finland so we can see the northern lights.
Cold. AKA cold.
There is zero chance either one of them wants to go.
You're going to go spend the night in a refrigerator. Yes. That's your ideal vacation.
But I've always loved, I want to go see the northern lights. And so this way we don't have to go out. We can just, stay in the bed and see it in the warmth of our glass igloo.
Right. Yeah. Your warm igloo.
Right.
What a concept.
Yeah.
What a time to be alive. We can have warm igloos.
Yeah, it's just getting to this place in Finland that'd be the problem. I think a dog sled's involved.
Right. Need a snowmobile and a Sherpa. I don't know. What's other cold things that help you get places?
That's probably it.
Yeah, that's it. Sherpa, sled dogs, and a snowmobile.
Yeah. Maybe an ice pick.
Skis, snowshoes. There you go. Dude. Don't forget, pack well.
We're going way off topic, but we went to Maine a few years ago for Christmas, and we did some cross-country skiing, and I am not good at it.
I think it's genetic, right? I'm not sure what the Finnish are good at that. So.
Yeah. For Scotch Irish, I'm good at. I guess I'm good in a pub.
Yeah, you're good at bourbon.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's right. It's not a problem. It's a hobby.
Right.
So we're on the flight from Miami to St. Thomas, and my wife sees this guy sitting next to us, and he's like, "Oh, he's got a little Carolina sticker on his laptop or bag or notebook or something?
It was like my journal. I was like gonna write on the flight. I was like very angsty. I'm like, I'm gonna get some ideas and write them down next to these people.
And we said, no, you're not. Because he also had another sticker that said, I love Rode microphones.
I do. Go Rode. Shout out Rode. Yeah. Sponsor this podcast.
We're looking for a sponsor. We'd love a sponsor.
Yeah.
We love Rode mics. I have the Rodecaster as my board and the Rode mic, the pod mics here. And even my son, who's in broadcast production, he asked for a Christmas present. He asked for a Rode microphone. And I'm like, all right, that's a little bit more than I was paying.
right.
On your Christmas
they can get up there. They start to make big jumps.
Yeah. So I was like, let's talk to this guy. And it was Halloween. And I remember, one, because it's Halloween, but the other is that the new season of Mandalorian had come out. And I was all excited because I had it on my iPad. And I was like, I'll get to watch the newest season of The Mandalorian. And we start talking to Will, and I was like, yeah, I got this. And he immediately considered. You didn't offer to switch seats with my wife to watch it.
I would have, though. But if not for my girlfriend, she was like, you cannot watch it without me. I'm like, I'm not seeing it for like 2 weeks.
and so we're talking about story and Mandalorian and all these other stories. Like, he even said, my wife's, one of her favorite movies is Xanadu. and Will's like, oh man, that's a great movie. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And we just had a great time. That whole, what is it, a 2-3 hour flight?
No, it's like 4.5, and I got 0 writing done. But we did the first podcast already, pretty much.
Right. We did the rough draft.
Right.
And this was, last year, and we kept trying to connect and have dinner, and finally we were able to do that. So
definitely, I got back to Charlotte finally, and hit you up immediately.
You finally got your dive master.
I did. I got my dive master cert on that trip, which was amazing. Shot some amazing underwater video, and ended up meeting an underwear model, a guy who needed a promotional shoot done while he was there. So
wait, did you shoot a dude underwear model underwater?
Oh, a little bit, yeah, and it was amazing. I met this guy. I financed my whole trip from this gig. It was like meant to be. It was right. Pretty perfect. And just because I brought my camera with me, I had all my gear. He was like, "You have your gear with you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." He's like, "Let's shoot." So we went to beaches, and I was editing, Speedo slow-mo shots. My dad would come in. I was at the house at the time, hadn't moved to LA, and he would come in and be like, "What are you working on there?" And I'm like, "That's good. He's a good-looking guy, huh? You want me to get you a free Speedo? I can do it, Dad."
It's like, Dad, he looked like you before I took over editing and shoot.
Right. It's all the movie magic.
It's the magic of the camera.
Right.
So we mentioned the dive master training. So tell me your history, because I've done a lot of the talking so far. Tell me your history. Why were you going down to St. Thomas?
Well, I've been going there. I've been scuba diving since I was 11, and I have done a bunch of theater in my life, been a Broadway performer. I love making movies, which doesn't leave much time to complete the dream of becoming a dive master. But this pandemic has given us all got a lot of free time on your hands. Amount of time, right? So I found the 2.5, 3 weeks I needed to go down, stayed with a buddy that I knew on island, and knocked out my dive master. And it was amazing. The dive master training me, his name was Aqua. And he trained the Cuban Navy SEALs, the Hombres Ranas, the frogmen down in Cuba before moving to St. John and becoming a dive master there. So I had elite level.
That's pretty awesome.
Scuba training. And he was just like, ignore the book. We're going to go off and do our own thing. And it was a fantastic, I want to make a documentary actually about this guy called Buoyancy. He'd always be like, buoyancy is key, and he was amazing. Had the most control I've ever seen of anybody under the water. But it was an inspiring, amazing trip.
That's probably why it took 5 months, because it was all off the books.
So. Right. They had to make sure he actually certified me to do what I need to do. But yeah, just his stories were incredible, and that's, kind of what I love. I love a good story. If I find one, I'm like, immediately the ideas start coming to make a film out of it, to make a documentary, to use the power of filmmaking to boost, awareness for this guy. He was trying to immigrate here and having the toughest time, despite having lived in Florida already for 5 years. And so he had just moved to St. John a week earlier. So I got my own Navy SEAL, excited to be there. That's not normally the case. Normally you're, old news, but I was his first dive master student at his new scuba shop. And so he was all in, just trying to give me the best experience possible. So it was such a amazing trip. And I mean amazing. I was shocked at the time I was having between the underwear model being like, can I pay you to work while you're here? I'm like, yes, you can. Yeah, I'm not doing anything else. Get out of the water 5 dives a day and then go make a promotional for this guy. So it was, I couldn't ask for anything more.
Right. That is what you do for work.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man, another day. There's no going early to make the donuts.
Right. And living that nomadic lifestyle, had I not put myself in that situation and opened myself up to be there, you just kind of say yes to the universe sometimes and follow it around.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Well, and we were on the plane and talking for hours, and one of the films that you recommended was the Kakoa from the Yeti Presents series.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about that film.
Oh, it's on YouTube for free. It's about 30 minutes long, but if you ever are interested in St. John and the Caribbean, it is a fantastic look at this one family's boat that they built, and that you're allowed to charter when you go down, and they'll take you all over the Caribbean. And it was decimated by Hurricane Irma, as was the island. But these people hunkered down, and it's such an inspiring story that they rebuilt their boat and inspired the rest of the island to just follow suit and rebuild. And St. John is back, baby. It was the first time I'd been since Irma had happened. And that island was devastated. And it was very cool to see a filmmaker come in and target one specific story, but it meant so much more to the rest of the island. If Kikoa can come back, we can come back. Kind of became the saying, the motif of the island that keeps reappearing. We'll rebuild it. We're fine. Well, this is St. John. We're St. John strong. So we'll come back. Yeah.
And that link will be in the show notes to if you guys want to go click it. Like you said, it's 30 minutes. It's a great story. It's great video, great cinematography.
Shot, cool characters that are real life people. Yeah, and unreal 30 minutes of your life, and just educational too. It's checks all the boxes.
Well, I think it's interesting. You mentioned, you showed up for dive master training at this guy who used to be in Navy SEALs teaching the frogmen, and you were the first student, and he's all not just saying, yeah, we're going to get you certified, but going deep, literally and figuratively.
Right.
And, a lot of times what happens in real life from a sense of scale is more unbelievable, I think, than what you see in the movies. You could see a movie, but then somebody tells you about the story of their life. You're like, I could never sell that in a movie. It's unbelievable. Nobody would believe that you met these 2 randos on the way down to St. Thomas, and then you had this amazing adventure, and you just stumbled across this underwear model and then paid for the trip, and then coming back, even just that little bit. I think a lot of people's lives, and I think this may speak to, I see you drawn towards documentaries is what I'm trying to say, because you like telling real people, real stories, because I think they're more fantastic than what you'd see in a scripted movie.
Yeah, totally. And I don't know, with the way filmmaking is headed, those stories are now people love documentaries. Documentaries used to be the boring thing you put on, right? The documentaries have gotten so good, and there's a whole new craft and accessibility to that. If you have a camera, which we all do on our phones,
right,
you can make a documentary, and you can use that footage combined with other footage. I mean, it's a cool multimedia thing. And there are these crazy, crazy things going on our planet. And, I'm on a mission to bring a lot of those, to people's brains. And so we can see how beautiful and wild and, dangerous and inspiring this whole world we live in is.
Man, that's good stuff.
It's good stuff.
So you mentioned you had been a Broadway actor.
I was in Mean Girls, the musical.
Yeah. we're super bummed because that was one of the musicals. My wife and I, we go to see the Broadway shows here in Charlotte, and we were like, oh man, they canceled it. And that was a show that you were in.
Yes. Yeah. I play, if you're a movie buff and you're listening to this, I played Glen Coco. Like, you go Glen Coco, you go Glen Coco. And I played Coach Carr. I had a bunch of roles. I had a bunch of speaking lines in it. It was fun. It's nice to do a fun show. Like, I've done my fair share of West Side Stories, and nobody's like, hey, let's go get a drink after. What do no one leaves with a sunny disposition. It's a beautiful piece of theater, and we're all deep about it. But, Mean Girls, we're having a good time. And everyone's laughing, and people are too drunk in the audience. And, it just kind of makes your job easier after, 4 or 5 months of doing the same show over and over again.
It was interesting over dinner. You had mentioned watching the Oscar movies this year and how heavy they were.
Heavy is like an understatement. Because normally it gets about Oscar time and I'm like, oh, I'm going to watch, a movie a night. It's normally about 7 or 8 movies. And it's normally, I got a Black Panther in there with Whiplash, with Birdman. And but this year is sad. It's like, it's good sad. It's I think the movies are important. I think they're very, they're giving voice to the voiceless, and a lot of them, they're bringing light to things you've never thought about and telling it in a cool way. Sound of Metal, if you haven't seen it, I won't even talk about it. Just go see it. Sound editing, automatic win. Like, it's going to win. It's a beautiful story and technically so masterful. But there is at least I personally have a threshold of sad things that I can take about. I think actors are pretty empathic, and I'll wear that on my sleeve for a few days if I see something tragic. And some of these movies are tragic. They're tragic, and they don't go the way you want, which happens sometimes. That happens in life sometimes. But
that's actually that's, you can look at that, and we look at the heaviness of the movies and it reflects the world we live in right now, because there's this stuff going on, right? I mean, there was all the racial tension, and
definitely.
And I hate saying that word because it's such a, as you said, heavy doesn't describe it. Racial tension doesn't describe it.
It doesn't give it justice. Some of the movies this year do. And Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, amazing performances, amazingly well-crafted movies. And not even movies, there's films. I like to make a distinction. Sometimes I'm like, I need a movie, and sometimes I need a filmy film. That's what I call them. Sometimes I just need a film.
I just need some
there's
cotton
filmy
candy.
films, there's films, and there's movies, And the popcorn tastes a little better when you're watching movies and films. But sometimes filmy films, it's like, all right, let's pour a...
You got to break out the hard liquor.
Yeah. Big glass of bourbon. Big glass of bourbon. We're going into a 2-hour, 45-minute experience, of sorts.
It reminds me of Schindler's List. That is a phenomenal, I guess.
How many times have you watched Schindler's List?
Probably once.
Right.
Because you're just like, whoa.
That almost for me is like the biggest data point about filmy films is like, how many times have you watched it? Once. Most of these films this year, I'm watching once. I don't think I'm making a second trip back unless I'm trying to get inspired or steal a lot of the wonderful filmmaking in them. But yeah, I'm like, oh, that was good. That was a ride, Yeah. I'm feeling nauseous. I need to go sit down for a bit. So
it's no Fast and the Furious where you can watch it multiple times.
Right. And zone out. And check your phone,
Which is also coming out this year.
Another one. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Was that the 9th one, I think?
What a journey that franchise has gone on. Went from like a cool drag racing realistic movie, and now I saw a good meme the other day that was like, the Fast and Furious crew is going to start fighting the Marvel characters pretty soon. They're all like super soldiers now and like doing flips and kung fu, and it's
one thing when the cars did crazy stuff. It's another when the humans do.
Yeah, like when like bullets don't kill them.
Right.
Like, yeah, that's
that's the one. If you get, I don't care what size bullet, if you get hit with a 22 in the foot, you're stopping.
Yeah. You're spending at least a week in a hospital.
It hurts like a some bitch.
Right. It does not feel nice.
So how did you get into acting from going back in the beginning?
Yeah, I did my first musical in 3rd grade.
Seriously?
Here in Charlotte. Yeah, 3rd grade. I was an Oompa Loompa in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And from then I did 2 musicals at least every year, just community theater. Just kind of was trying to get as much theater in my life as I could. And I was still a 3-sport athlete, so I kept a really diverse interest. I was scuba diving by that point, and it came time to decide what I wanted to do with my life. And I was like, marine biology, save the world, or go sing, dance, and act. And so I auditioned for schools, got into the University of Michigan, go Blue, where I went and studied music theater for 4 wonderful years, learned a lot, and found a love for directing while I was there, mainly theater. So I was directing plays, directing musicals, and got out into the professional world and started to book shows all over the country and do things. And while you're in a show, it's very hard to direct another show. In fact, it's impossible pretty much, unless you're working during the day. I cannot see a world where it's happening. So from there, I was like, you know what I should do? I should direct some films. Like that would just, tide me over until I can direct the next piece of theater. So I directed my first film in 2018, so about a year and a half after graduating. Once I was like, I need to keep my directing skills up to par. And that's called SHMIC, which was an acronym for She Can Hear Me, I Know. And that film was about mental health. I was watching all my friends lose their minds post-graduation. Who am I? What do I want to do? Some turn to drugs. And it was about a guy who's about to kill himself, and then he gets a call from I'm blanking on the word. They call you, you don't know them. They try and sell you. Telemarketer. Yeah, thank you. A telemarketer. And she pretty much talks him off the ledge and gets him on the right path. So we made that for $700 in an Airbnb in Brooklyn. And it really started as like a way to help my buddy get more stuff for his reel. And he was out in LA, and we wanted to hang out, but we needed to justify hanging out because we're men. We can't just be like, hey, I want to see my friend. And so he flew out. We shot the thing in 2 days, 2 18-hour days. It taught me so much about working with SAG, and flew a DP out that I'd worked with before. And
all right, you just dropped 2 acronyms that
two
most
acronyms.
Of my listeners...
SAG is the Screen Actors Guild. It's the union to. I'm a proud member of SAG, and it's the union that all the actors are in. Stuntmen are in it. Gives us higher wages and protects us and health insurance and all that. And a DP is a director of photography. So that's the guy who's artistically in charge of composing the shot. A little different than a cameraman. They can kind of, on lower budget projects, they are often one and the same. So my DP, Roman, he's amazing. Shout out to Roman. He came in, we flew him out. He brought his own camera. He had a really nice Arri Alexa that we shot on, which is a very expensive camera. You can Google that one. So SHMIC looks fantastic, and we really had no intention of it doing anything or going anywhere. We were just like, we'll send it to some festivals and kind of see where it gets in. And it got into a festival called Holly Shorts Festival in Los Angeles and premiered at the Chinese Theater in LA, which to a fresh out of college 23-year-old
made
Will,
for
I was
$700 in an Airbnb.
Yeah. I kind of realized okay, when you pursue excellence, right? We just wanted to make the best film we possibly could, and we put our heart and soul into it. Good things happen, and even more good things than just it going to this festival. It helped launch my friend's career. He booked a film called The Way Back with Ben Affleck, using a lot of the footage from this because his performance was so amazing in it. We should have pushed him more for some Best Actor awards at some other festivals. It got into some other places too, Capital City Film Fest, Williamsburg Film Festival. So it made the rounds, which was amazing. I kind of started to see this world of film in a different way. It wasn't this thing to tide me over until theater. It was the thing I could do while still being an actor.
Yeah.
So it's nice. I have a foot in both worlds, and I love working with actors, and not a lot of directors can honestly say that. I really enjoy the process and breaking it down and asking them questions and making them feel good, because as an actor, I know what I would want out of my director. And and then from there, I'm on my 8th film now.
Oh, wow.
We just wrapped the 8th film. I've got a comedy pilot. I'm sending out to festivals more. So it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing what's the journey I've been on. That now I'm a filmmaker. Because someone had to tell me, they're like, dude, you're a filmmaker now.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I guess I am. Cool. Yeah.
Because you've actually, made films.
Right.
It's right there in the name.
Yeah. Like, who knows what the criteria is? I still don't, there's a lot for me to learn. There's a lot for me to grasp onto. But what's cool is with filmmaking, I have something to say and access to different stories and characters that I wouldn't get to play as an actor. You know, when I go in for when I'm in movies or on TV or in Broadway shows, it's normally like jock one, you know, stockbroker, soldier. Variations of very bad people. I have a good bad guy, you know, and with this, I get to, you know, bring other voices and bring my voice in collaboration with different writers and artists and really hear them. And that collaboration is fantastic. There's no better feeling than when you really inspire everyone to get behind this story you're telling.
Well, and that's the part that I think is really interesting is, you know, what story, and that kind of takes us back to St. Thomas and St. John, because that's why you were getting your dive master training, is because you wanted to use that as part of your, hey, I can use this as I'm making films to tell stories. And so what kind of stories do you love to tell? Or what stories do you see that you're kind of drawn to?
I kind of operate under this principle, and it's not my own principle. I actually heard another writer-director talk about it, Taylor Sheridan. He's not a Quentin Tarantino, but he's my favorite director-writer. He did Sicario. I don't know if you saw that film. Come Hell or High Water, Wind River. I think he's got 3 movies out. He had a good interview where
Sicario 2.
Sicario, I don't think he was involved with Sicario 2, but that's how good Sicario was. They were just like, he was like, you want to do another one? He's like, there's no story left.
Right.
Like, I told the whole thing. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Sicario too. But yeah, he said something one time in an interview, and he was like, when I sat down to write my first script, which was Sicario, that everyone passed on.
Right.
He said, I just went into my head and said, I'm not that special. There's like 9 billion people in the world. I bet there's a few million people with the same taste that I have. And so let me write what I would enjoy.
Yeah.
Let me write what I want to see on the screen. And let me just craft the story that is on my heart and on my brain. And he did that. And everyone passed on it. It was Sicario. And then the movie he wrote after Sicario was Come Hell or High Water. And that blew up. That's a great movie. It's a movie, dude. It's like, it's got all the themes there, but it is gritty and beautiful and well made. And then everybody said, well, what else do you have for us? And he said, remember the Sicario script? Make that. And then that's the one that kind of blew him up and all that. But I operate under that principle. I really took that to heart. And I was like, okay, what do I need to see? What movie would I need to see that would like help me for that week, until it kind of drifted to the back of my memory. And that's kind of where Schmick was born. You know, I was seeing all my friends with these mental health issues, and I was like, I have an opinion on this.
Yeah.
And how am I going to express that? Am I going to tell them? No, I'll make a film about it. And I have a horror film called Night Terror, because I had a night terror one time.
Really?
It was scary. I like jumped up ready to fight. I thought I was about to be murdered. And it was kind of an exorcism to write that and bring that to life and jump into that horror genre for a second. I don't want to be a horror director by any means, but it's really fun to like take the power away from your fears and be the one scaring for a second. And I haven't had a night terror since I made Night Terror, which is good, which is really good. So,
well, and you know, Sam Raimi started with the Evil Dead trilogy.
Right.
And now he's, you know, big guy doing, he just did, what did he do something really good?
All I can think of is Spider-Man right now, but that's it.
Since then, he did something, but he started, you know, in this horror just of doing something basically with his buddies at night in this cabin in the woods. I read the Bruce Campbell autobiography several years ago, and they talked about how they made it, and very similar of, they got this abandoned cabin. They were just kind of having fun. And next thing you know, well, if you're Bruce Campbell, you're on the B list, but
definitely. Yeah. I mean,
people know who you are.
Right.
People know Bruce Campbell and his chin.
Definitely. There's another principle that I kind of operate from when I'm making films, and it's never been easier to be a filmmaker. Like, we're not we don't have tape anymore, you know. We don't have rolls of film that we have to put into a machine, and it's less mechanical. Now everything is digitalized, the cameras are smaller, the access to actors has never been easier. So I hope people understand that, you know, and because really, if there's a story you want to tell, you can do it. You have your iPhone. There's really like, I felt there was no excuse to not seize this outlet as another means of storytelling while I do my acting, but it would be my thing and I'm in control of it and I can invite the collaborators I want to invite into my space. So it's been cool.
So what stories are you watching and enjoying now?
I was just at stunt school. Shout out to LA Stunts in Atlanta. My last film I had.
He can't turn his head to the right.
Yeah. I got a little bit of a sore neck from jumping 40 feet into an airbag. Maybe you can post a video. I'll send you a video. I have some pretty sick footage of me diving off this thing. Oh, what was the question? What stories I like to tell? Yeah. So I was at stunt school and I was making my way through a bunch of, you know, martial arts films and action films. I was, you know, just kind of like, oh, I see how they did that now based on the information I was just told, and just kind of filling in some gaps for me as a filmmaker. I had some moments of violence in one of the last movies I just shot. And I felt it wasn't unsafe by any means, but I felt there were some gaps in the protocol to run a fight scene or, you know, and so I wanted to fill those gaps. And that's why I went to LA Stunts. But I sat down to watch this movie that I thought was going to be like a B or C level movie called The Outpost. I'm like sitting watching. I'm like, oh, this is really pretty for like a B level movie. And then Orlando Bloom popped up on the screen. I'm like, what's Orlando Bloom doing in this like budget Afghanistan movie? And then I'm like, this doesn't look low budget. And I pop on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 96%. Critics are raving about it all over the place. And I put my phone down, put my phone on silent, and sat there and had the best hour and 55 minutes watching this true life, inspiring Afghanistan war movie about the Korengal Valley. Didn't realize it was a true story while I was watching it. Got to the end, realized it was a true story, realized I've read 3 books about it, and watched another documentary called War with Sebastian Junger. Sebastian Junger definitely should read this book. He went and embedded himself with these Marines and documented their entire experience. So I'm already obsessed with this documentary. I find the movie that they made about another battle in the same valley that perfectly blends together with that. But I found out it's a true story, and 2 Medal of Honors were awarded. You know, it was completely an inspiring, beautiful, well-crafted tale about overcoming impossible odds. I mean, it's like the Saving Private Ryan for my generation's war, right? And it's completely true. It's not like Saving Private Ryan is completely made up. Yeah. This is 100% true. Real people you can look up who went above and beyond the call of duty, despite your opinions on the war. It addresses these issues. It's larger than it is. But I left feeling like that's a movie. That's a film. You know, I felt ready to go kick butt at stunt school the next day, you know? And I really had been missing that in the movies recently. And that was the latest thing I watched where I was like, this is exactly The Outpost. It's on Netflix. It's been sitting right there probably for a year, probably the whole pandemic. And I just missed it, whoosh, right over my head. And then didn't think it was a true story. It was the perfect.
Busy watching what 25 times.
Right. Yeah, like I'm notorious for just rewatching things because I'm like, well, at least I know it's good, you know. Because I hate when I see something that's bad.
So this is a total technical question.
Great, lay it on me.
What is the difference between the director and the producer?
Oh, great. This is a cool question. The short answer is the director is in charge of protecting the overall story. So he is kind of at the top because there's all these different departments. The higher budget you get, the more people you'll have under you. You'll have somebody called a production designer, and their job is to paint the walls. If the walls need to be different, hang stuff up. If it's Indiana Jones, they're the ones putting the moss in the corner of the temple as he's coming in. They're in charge of making it look like the writer's vision, what's in the script. The director then can say, yeah, I don't like that skeleton there. That's not going to work. That's going to mess up this shot. And that might be voiced to the director from the DP. Hey, that skeleton's really going to get in the way when we try and slide the camera over here. Is there a way we can move it? Yeah, let me check with the production designer. yeah, can we move that? And they go, no, that's the skeleton. We spent $300,000 on that skeleton. Don't move it. You know?
It's there so that we can convey the hopelessness of life.
Right. So as a director, you want to go in and say, okay, what's the best way to tell this story? And you might have ideas. Oh, I want this shot here. This is the kind of camera we're going to use. You might have all these opinions, or you might say, I'm going to hire this guy who would bring all these opinions with him. And that's when the collaboration starts. Hey, as a DP, can you bring your artistry to this project? I think you'd be a great fit. The producer is the money, right?
Gotcha.
There's a bunch of different types of producers. There's a line producer, and that's the work. That's the one nobody wants to do. Line producer is the person calling actors, setting up plane flights, making sure that everyone arrives where they're supposed to go, gets the call sheet in time to tell you when to arrive to set, making sure everyone gets paid, that sort of things. Then there's a producer above that who is in charge of raising money to finance the film. Okay. So that's primary. So they get the money to the director. They might hire the director, and then the director might bring in the DP. But at the very top of that hierarchy is the producer, or the executive producer, as we've heard. And it can get dicey when the producer is the director, or the actor is the executive producer, right? Because now the actor is overriding all the other departments. So the hierarchy in film is really, really important. It's kind of there for a reason, to get it done, because all of a sudden, if you have too many voices in the room, it's 3 a.m., you haven't gotten the shots you need, you're out of time, the movie doesn't get made.
Yeah.
It's kind of a miracle that movies get made. It really is. It really is. There's so many moving parts and so many opinions in one room that any filmmaker will tell you, like, when the work isn't over when you get your last shot and everyone's wrapped and goes home and gets really drunk and hugs each other. What an amazing experience. Then after that, you got to hire an editor. You have to have a sound designer. You have to have someone provide music for the film. I mean, the jobs are endless. And that's why movies cost so much money to make, right? And everyone's in a union now, and everyone, so it's a really exciting process when you find your collaborators and your actors that can bring it. And you might say, hey, I can't pay you what your normal rate is, but they say, hey, Will, I'll come work for you. Even though I've been on a bunch of TV shows and my normal rate is astronomical, I want to work with you because I enjoy the level of collaboration you bring. That's something I really pride myself on, is letting artists be artists. A director of photography, if he says, hey, I think this would look better here, that's his specialty. And it's my job to be like, does that support the story? It does. Let's try it. We'll work that into the schedule for the day. Or say, hey, we don't have the money or the time for that. If it is a big point of contention, most of the time you can turn to the producer and go, hey, producer, can you tell him we don't have the money for this shot? And they have to be the bad guy.
Right.
A lot of times, at least for myself, I'm my own producer. So I'm the guy saying, hey, we can't have that shot in here. But you surround yourself with good people and people you trust, because they're going to see you cry. They're going to see you get frustrated. They're going to see you in a time crunch. And so that hierarchy's there, but it's also the most collaborative team sport, I think, on the planet, with the most moving parts.
And I would imagine getting to the end of a film, like you said, you just wrapped one, and getting to that and feeling like you said, you reached this point as a team, as a collaborative effort of, you do go out and celebrate and have some drinks, and it's a good experience.
Yeah, some of my drunkest nights have been after I wrapped the film I've made, because you're just like, there's still so much work to be done in post-production. That's what it's called. But at least in that moment, you got all the materials in place. You got your sound files, you've got the footage, and you just birthed this thing into the world that you dreamed up in your head. There's no better feeling.
Yeah.
And to accompany that with 17 beers or whatever, is good too.
With these people that you've, as you mentioned, you kind of have gone through you're very vulnerable and in some sense intimate, as you're trying to tell this story that's on your heart, that you've seen, that you're like, you have this vision for a story, and to actually see that and to have them be partners with you on that journey has to bring you really close.
It's love. I mean, it's all love. And the problems that emerge on sets, And the max crew I've had is 15, 20. I imagine when you get up there to about 300 people working on your movie, you know, people are in and out. Yeah, the direct, you know, Steven Spielberg doesn't have time to really like learn every PA's name on West Side Story. And, you know, that would be cool if he did. But at least when you're making indie movies, as I do, independent filmmaking, that's the lingo. When you're making indies like I am, it's got to be about love. You got to let people know, hey, you're here because I believe in you as an artist and I want your art to shine. And once you do that, people are all in. People will go the extra mile for you. But people get in trouble when they think they can just be like, hey, show up here, stand here, walk here. No, it is a collaborative process. But yeah, I think there's some directors who are control freaks, but I don't have that problem yet. I'm very down to, if an actor says, I want to say this line like this, you know, there's always a compromise to be made.
Right. Yeah. Could be, try it. Let's see what works.
Try it.
No,
and we'll do another take without it. And that's the beauty of that. In a theatrical production, they're saying the line the wrong way every night. It's every night that it's the wrong way. You don't get to then later be like, we're going to slide the good take in there. I'm happy I gave them their little playtime. But sometimes you give an actor that space and in your brain you're thinking, there's no way that they're going to be able to cry for a second and then, you know, snap out of it. But then they'll surprise you. It's pretty cool that if you allow people to dream up their ideas and execute them, they'll often surprise you, I've found.
And even if that one doesn't work, it could be that you've given them the sort of the power and the freedom to express the one that you're like, oh, that changes everything. Yeah.
Well, I've had actors where I'm kind of getting annoyed by the ideas and I'm letting them have it. And then like about the 12th idea is something that is so good. You know, I could have never thought about
crappy ideas worthwhile.
But at least, you know, that's what you got to allow. And you have to give yourself that time. Time is money in filmmaking. So
literally.
Yeah, it is. So my first projects were shot in 2 days, 1 day, you know, and we're going, you know, I'm stretching everyone's endurance to the max when I'm on set. But this last film, I got enough money together to give my team a full 10 days to make a 16-page project. And the average is normally about 2 pages a day, 2.5 pages a day. And it went great. I mean, we had time to play with stuff, come up with new ideas, reshoot moments that didn't work. And this was, and that's pretty common. That's pretty common to be adapting on the fly when you're working on a movie.
When you're looking at the movies that you love or the stories that you love, what filmmakers would you say have sort of resonated with you that you look and you're like, oh man, whatever story they tell, I love the way they tell it.
The obvious ones are Quentin Tarantino. You know,
okay, that's a layup.
The cliche choices, you know. I'll bring it back to that Taylor Sheridan guy. He's pretty cool. He was on Sons of Anarchy for a while, and I might be butchering this story. Sorry, Mr. Sheridan. But it came to a point where his agents kind of told him, "You've done pretty much everything you're going to do as an actor." He was a supporting role on that show, and the auditions weren't really coming for the main characters, but they were like, "You can continue being the guest star, or you can make some moves to some other places." So that's when he went out, spent some of the last of his money on final draft to write those scripts. He wrote Sicario. No one cared. Or they cared, or they just passed. Then he wrote Come Hell or High Water, and it was directed by someone else. That got into Cannes Film Festival, and he wasn't allowed to go. They didn't let him go to Cannes Film Festival. He wrote the thing. So then Sicario, he wrote that, I think, and somebody else directed. And same situation happened. He wasn't able to go. So then he said, you know what? I'm going to direct Wind River. And he became director-writer Taylor Sheridan at that moment. To me, that's like a lesser-known story, a guy who's not like wildly celebrated. But the way he pivoted his career from actor to writer-director is someone I just admire so much. And his movies just resonate with something deep inside guys. They're all like Western-esque, but set in modern times. They're beautifully shot. They're landscapes and telling stories in places that we don't often go to. There's always a heavy Native American component, or, you know, how many DEA border movies are there that are actually good, you know,
Right.
that aren't like cheesy and make don't provide an argument for both sides. And he really has a mastery of what I think people want to see right now, which are made up stories, but that somehow really elevate us to a new level of understanding or show you something you've never seen before.
That's the appeal of the indie movies, is because people are sort of tired of the cookie cutters, oh, I can tell how this is going to go, or it's super predictable. And I'm not saying Godzilla versus Kong isn't going to make a lot of money, but nobody's going to say that's a great movie.
I haven't seen it yet. Do you know who wins?
Nobody wins.
Yeah. That's what well, we were all taking bets on it before it came out. And I said Kong for sure. But what I actually think is going to happen, and we'll see if this prediction comes true, but I think they're going to team up on a bigger baddie or something. I don't know. Who knows? Spoiler alert on my predictions.
Spoiler alert for a prediction. You're remarkably accurate.
Yeah. I'm like, I've been saying that since January. People are like, oh yeah, you're totally right. And I'm like,
But
yeah.
I think we sort of, as you mentioned, there's the filmy films, then there's the movies, and then there's the films that are in that sweet spot that are both entertaining and enjoyable, and that tell a story that matters and that resonates and that we care about. Like you said, you could go with the DEA Border Patrol sort of movie that either goes caricature off the deep end or is sort of just a sort of a fluff action film that doesn't actually address anything, or something that you enjoy watching, as you said, more than once, maybe.
Right. Yeah, I think I often ask, I'm like, where is our Forrest Gump? Where's the movie that is just undeniably feel good and amazing and well crafted, from the writing to the directing to the acting? And they're there, but it feels like there's less iconic stuff being made. There's more regurgitation in our industry than there's ever been. Certain people tell you that filmmakers are just out of ideas, but I think there's a real a change that needs to happen from producers who are making stuff to not say, oh, this is a great idea, you know what would make it better? If we change it like completely to a different thing. Yeah. Let's have you seen even just how we could do a whole Star Wars podcast on this. The new Star Wars movies to me are the best example of that. There's zero risk taking. There was no planning even. They were like, you could almost see while you're watching the films, there's good elements there. There were talented people working on the project, but you could kind of see the calculations on how do we make the most money the whole time. Right. And I really hope that we get back to artistry that is inspiring. I think the artistry's there, but we're in sad times right now, and our art is reflecting those sad times.
Kind of like music from the 70s was all about Vietnam and, again, racial stuff. And,
right.
There's a lot of that angst and frustration because you're trying to, as you mentioned, you're trying to get out the story that you're seeing or you're feeling or you're hearing. And you're like, how can I take this story of me having a night terror? How do I deal with that in a way? Because I'm sure other people on this planet also have had night terrors, and make it something that not only is enjoyable, but also says something.
And I like movies that are accessible. So the movie I just finished is called Safe House. We've got Night Terror. We've got Schmick, which you're like, I don't know what this is about, but what's a Schmick? I'm going to click. Nobody knows it's an acronym, right? But even within those, I'm trying to take a level of risk, even if it's at the risk of offending somebody, or it might be a topic that is a bit controversial, or there's multiple opinions on, especially with this mental health part of Schmick. The solutions that I find in that are up for debate, but that's the beauty of film. But within Night Terror, there are some risks, and whether they pay out or not, some people don't. Sometimes it doesn't get into a film festival that I'm like, whoa, we should have gotten into there. Right. And then Night Terror's won Best Horror Awards at other festivals. So it's hard to know, but all you can do is take those risks, support your own vision, be your biggest fan, and kind of just go for it.
Yeah.
And by the time you birth this film child, you're so in love with it, and even its flaws, because oh cool, that moment worked because this and this happened on set, and I was responsible for that moment working. or I cracked the final little piece in the puzzle that made the movie great or gave us that great moment. And just opening yourself up to that while you're on set is kind of the most important thing. But even in the pre-work, you can see when a studio has come in and totally shifted the whole focus of a movie or made it more generic to appeal to foreign audiences or whatever. There's so many factors involved. You can have the most talented director, writer, DP, all the way down, animators and all that stuff. But if it's not going to make money, a lot of times it's not going to get greenlit or they'll go back and reshoot it. But I think audiences are getting smarter. The whole Zack Snyder cut situation has been pretty cool. I think people's film IQ is increasing. And I think we need to make movies that match that. I think people are ready to break the form of an hour and a half or an hour and 45 or 2 hour 15 minutes. I think we can have a 4-hour film and people will get something out of it. Some people won't be able to sit through it, but we need to start taking those risks. The whole DC franchise could have been something so different had they trusted that artist's vision and supported that artist's vision first before saying, well, no one's going to watch a 4-hour movie. What is all this stuff you're shooting? And then realizing later, the people will watch it. Some people might not like it, but they'll be there. Yeah, yeah. If some people are like, this is good, it's worth your 4 hours, and they sit through it and I don't like it, at least they were there to participate in that moment. I feel people are just disconnecting from film these days.
All right, man. Well, I think we're pretty good wrap. We're close to an hour.
Oh, we've been talking for an hour? Oh, this is another thing I can add to this conversation. There's something happening with our younger people. I think TikTok is to blame. I like to blame things on TikTok. And I'm only 27, so I should understand what TikTok is. But for some reason, I'm already feeling older than I've ever felt before. Because I grew up on Vine, right? Vine is where it's at. Just 7 seconds. None of this minute-long stuff. But film isn't cool to younger people. They don't obsess over movies. When I talk to kids, like, hey, have you seen Back to the Future? Like, what's that?
Right.
That's like heartbreaking to me. So that's something I think we as filmmakers all need to get around and be like, how do we appeal to the younger audiences? And I'm not sure it's like having kids text more in movies or trying to appeal to the TikTok thing. I think we need to like refresh our themes, re-inspire the next generation and show them that they have a place in filmmaking.
Well, and that goes back to your whole point of what story can we tell that's not watered down, that's not kind of smoothed out around the edges to be, well, let's make it as appealing to everyone. Because one of the first bits of advice I heard as a writer was have your target audience, have your, and not just, oh, I'm writing to men or I'm writing for everybody. Have a person. Imagine you're writing and talking to that person and make it effective or make it like, why would he care? Mm-hmm. And if you can make that person care, then other people will come along for the ride. And it's like, well, how do I get this person involved? Well, make good stuff that they care about.
It's amazing that I can meet someone on an airplane who has very similar tastes and very similar opinions. And we probably would differ on a few conversations, but ultimately we can come together under a similar framework.
Right.
And I don't think we're alone. I think there's a lot of people out there who are craving something different or a different approach going into this next decade of the roaring 20s that we're in. the roaring 20s part 2. That's happening.
2020s, yeah, 20 squared.
20 squared. Yeah, we're going to be getting after it. So I want to be inspired. I want to feel every emotion at the theater again.
Yeah.
And I might not be the one to do that, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to keep trying to protect my artistic vision. I'm sure when someone hands me a check for whatever thing
with a lot of zeros
with a couple ideas for changes, I'm like, oh yeah, my artistic vision might shift, but hopefully I can hold on to that even when success comes.
It reminds me of when I was watching Mandalorian on the plane, and I was just that excitement and the quality and the story and what was uncovered. I was like, I'm just having a really good time watching this.
We can't leave that behind.
Right.
We can't leave escapism behind. People need that. We need to go to galaxies far, far away, and we need to make the story the most important thing, and the people will follow. You can give us episode 7 Star Wars and just regurgitate the same story, and we'll like it.
Yeah.
But let's take those risks as a community, and let's make sure that these filmmakers know, hey, we're here to be inspired again. We're here to be raised up by the films we're watching. And I literally can't get over The Outpost because it's made my last 2 weeks awesome.
Right.
Watching those guys do what they did and then it turning out to be a true story for me not knowing the whole time, has echoed into my life in other ways. How I treat people, how grateful I am for things. So it really does have a bigger impact. And when we're pumping out all this sad content on people and then we're like, well, why is everyone so sad? Well, our main thing to lift people up is storytelling, and we're not giving them the tools and the stories to fall back on in tough times and to say, oh, well, those guys survived that invasion. I can get through this next shift at work of a job I hate.
Right. And you had mentioned over dinner that it's this little glimpse of hope at the end that is very important, because so many of these films that are out here now, they're just like, life is hard and everything sucks and everything's going to fall apart, and go watch Manchester by the Sea.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, to me, it wasn't that depressing because I was like, I don't care about this dude. It's like, you never created the sort of the emotional connection of, yeah, this dude's life sucks. He kind of brought it on himself, but where's the hope? You know, as you mentioned, it's like you want to say, well, what's going to rebound? And I think part of the way that happens is, as you talked about your dive master, you just want to tell his story now.
Right.
So go just talk to somebody and say, hey man, what's your story?
Right.
And find out what their story is, because we all have a story.
Right. And it's not to say those movies aren't well made or have a place in time, but there are people craving for high quality, well-made films that they leave the theater and go, maybe I could do a little bit better in my own life. Maybe I could be kinder to people. You know, we need that. We really, really, this society really needs that. And I hope that there is a move to support artists' vision who think that way. Yeah. And we can maybe get some of the best films made on the planet and have them considered for Oscars next year. Not that the Oscars even end all be all, but that will help us change the world and help us inspire people and live better lives.
Well, that's one of the big things here is story matters. Whether it's on the big picture or our personal stories, stories matter, and it's how we connect to each other. So, hey, if anybody wants to hear more about you or connect with you, what's your website or links?
My phone number is, no, I'm kidding. You can find me on Instagram at Lord Branner. It's Lord Branner because I used to bow to my professors, and this was before like Instagram was going to be the big thing. And some girls in college, we were like, "We made you an Instagram. It's Lord Branner." Because I would go, "Yes, my lord," when I would be told to do something. I'm a weird kid. I'm still weird.
You're a drama kid.
I'm a drama kid. So yeah, I bow to people. Get over it. But yeah, if you want to find me on Instagram, it's at Lord Branner. And I might be going back on Mean Girls tour this next year coming around. So check out those tickets at meangirlsbroadway.com and come check out the show. Yeah. It should be a good time, and we'll be making movies on that tour the whole time. So
awesome. All right, dude. Well, this has been awesome. Look forward to more dinners and hanging out, and who knows, maybe going down and learning how to scuba dive.
You know what? I'm looking forward to movie theaters reopening and then you and I going to see some stuff.
Oh, that'd be fun.
And then we podcast about it.
That's
Tell you what to see. Skip that if you're having a bad day. It's sad.
Go there.
Yeah, whatever you do.
You better take 2 Xanax before that.
Right. Smuggle your bourbon into the theater. Dump it in your icy. Put your feet up. You're in for a ride.
All right. Well, this has been Paul McDonald and Will Branner just hanging out and talking about movies.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Something inside has been awakened. I can no longer be who I was before. But if I am no longer who I was, who am I to be?